Hello everybody, and welcome back to another video of From Past to Present. Today I'm going to be doing a book review. The book is titled The City of Eros, New York City, Prostitution, and the Commercialization of Sex. Now, this book was written by a man named Timothy Gilfoyle, and in this book we are able to explore what happens when sex was drawn into the fast-paced market of New York City during the 19th century. Specifically, Gilfoyle's research is a culmination of various historical documents from 1970 to 1920. In the opening pages, he makes a point to clarify what he defines as a prostitute throughout this entire book, which is a woman who specifically exchanges sexual favors for currency. He makes this distinction because during this time, any woman outside the confines of marriage engaging in sexual activity would be regarded as a prostitute, whether engaging in such activities for food, rent, clothing, or purely for entertainment purposes. Now, I do think it is important to discuss a little bit of information about the author. So I did a little bit of background research about him. Timothy Gilfoyle was born in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania during the spring of 1956. He attended Sarah Lawrence College in New York while pursuing his undergraduate, and then he received his BA from Columbia University in 1979. He worked as a professor of urban and social histories at various collegiate institutions before becoming a history department chair at Loyola University in Chicago. According to his university page at Loyola University, they have like a little description of him. It says that Gilfoyle's research interests tend to focus on, quote, the development and evolution of various 19th century urban underworld subcultures and informal economics. So that's just a little bit of tidbits of information about what type of arguments does Gilfoyle present in his book. He's able to describe the effects of a growing population in culmination with various other social factors, such as the high rate of transience, the low wages for women, and a male subculture that threw aside their prior beliefs about proper sexual behavior, which led to this growing trade of prostitutions within New York City. In this boom-bust economy of the Big Apple, fueled by immigrants and emerging industries, prostitutions provided madams and hookers a way to be the best paid female workers within the city. In addition to the involvement of women, landlords saw a lucrative opportunity, and supporting males got involved as well, looking for an outlet for sexual activity outside the confines of marriage. This profession was increasing at a remarkable rate, taking note of the prior early forms of streetwalkers who only occasionally solicited sexual favors to supplement their meager factory or domestic incomes. That developed into a structured institution which advertised with guidebooks and business cards, and a mainstream media in which prostitution was visible all over the city, not just in brothels, but in masked balls, music halls, saloons, and even the third floor of movie theaters. Throughout this book, the author is able to masterfully recreate the culture surrounding the profession of prostitution, by describing the so-called hierarchy of pimps, madams, and business owners, and describes bosses and cops who skimmed off the top of brothel profits, and strip-teasing model artists, abortionists, distributors of contraceptives, and pornographers all increased in trade during this time. This entire complex institution was ultimately driven underground during the progressive era by different groups like the muckrakers, civic reformers, social hygienists, other people like that. rather than any type of urban redevelopment or social attitude change towards marriage. Gilfoyle also has a little brief discussion at the end of his book that reasserts that during the early 20th century, cultural and institutional changes such as the end of mass immigration and the resulting reduction in the number of transient men, the drop in the age of marriage, the rise of premarital sexual relations and affectionate marriage, and the relative success of governmental reform crusades ultimately reduced the demand for prostitutes and accelerated the decline of commercialized sex. But by the end of the 1920s, prostitution had once again become hidden and marginalized within society. Gilfoyle is able to take note of the changing patterns of land use and kind of argues that this helped transform prostitution within the later half of his book, so after 1820. Earlier in that century, commercialized sex had been geographically and culturally marginalized, and prostitution remained concentrated only within a few blocks and hidden typically from public view. However, after 1820, a dramatic shift in the city's real estate marked a sexual revolution, if you will, as land values skyrocketed. Property owners began to realize that brothel keepers were stable tenants and that commercialized sex was indeed profitable. Quote unquote houses of ill fame began to appear everywhere, and the market seemed to redefine prostitution, making sexual activity increasingly secular, organized, and affordable market commodity. Gilfoyle also describes the changing patterns of male leisure, which reinforced the expansion of prostitution and further promoted the commercialization of sex. Gilfoyle argues that the supporting male subculture in which unregulated sex was the categorical imperative was the mentality that flourished during this period. Men from all levels of society reveled in open displays of sexual indulgence and sexual aggressiveness that was displayed. And male entrepreneurs also responded to the increasing demand for commercialized sex by establishing brothels, concert saloons, cabarets, and theaters so that sex could be easily procurable by the paying customer. Gilfoyle describes how land pressures and cultural forces acted simultaneously in the 19th century, which moved commercialized sex from the fringe to the core of social life. Overall, I would say that Gilfoyle provides a thoroughly researched argument and provides sound documentation, demonstrating the claims that he makes throughout the book. Overall, I think this book is really good and definitely deserving of the Alan Neves Prize of Society of American Historians that it was granted. So I hope you guys check it out, and if you do read it, and let me know your reviews down in the comments below. I hope you have a great rest of your week, and I will see you guys soon.